Okay, everyone, we are going to get started. Welcome to Coffee Talk 3 with the National Inclusion Project. Today we are focusing in on what it is that early child care programs and essential child providers have learned during the pandemic and how it is that they have problem solved, how they've equipped their students and their educators, and what it is they're doing to move forward. I am going to take a minute to introduce our NIP team to you and then hand it over to our panelists for today. If this is your first time joining us or your first interaction with NIP, we are the National Inclusion Project. We specialize in supporting recreation programs in providing inclusive services and practices to all children and families in their care with and without disabilities. My name is Dr. Amanda Klug. I am the Director of Inclusive Recreation Standards and Accreditation. I'm joined today by our mastermind and tech support, Erin Hall, our Director of Inclusive Recreation Education and Training, as well as our two expert panelists for today, our folks who are on the ground in the trenches working in recreation programs as well as early child care and essential child care programs, Rene and Sarah. So I am going to turn the discussion over to them. And today we're going to focus in on three areas of discussion. What are some of the most successful strategies that they've implemented so far? Some of the problems and hurdles that they've encountered and how they've solved those problems and hurdles, and recommendations for go-to resources and supports. Now, everything that we discuss here today will be included in a captioned version of this video to post on our NIP website, as well as posting of some additional materials and resources and an FAQ that our panelists will contribute to and that we as an organization will provide to you so that you can download when it is that you're ready for them. Erin or panelists, do you have any questions before we get started? All right, cool beans. I am going to stop sharing my screen so that we can get back into our speaker view here. And just a reminder, if everyone can make sure that they're muted except for Rene and Sarah, that would be fantastic. All right, so we're going to start out with Rene, if you wouldn't mind introducing you to our group today, telling us who you are, where you're working, and what you've been up to. Then address that first question of what have you implemented so far that has been a strategy that's worked really well for helping your kiddos learn and grow and cope with what's going on, as well as from you and your teacher perspective as well. And then we'll jump over to Sarah for her to share the same.
Sure. Hi, guys. My name is Rene Ricardo. I am from Virginia. I am a public school teacher in Prince William County Public Schools. I teach preschool special education. So in March, when everything shut down, it was pretty crazy for us and for our kiddos. A lot of them have limited verbalizations. And so, you know, just understanding what was going on was hard. And for our families, too, it was really hard. So as in Virginia, our school system did not require anything mandatory as far as education or continuing for the school year. Everything was optional. But what we chose to do was host virtual circle times. It was really just a really nice time for us to connect with our kids. We sang familiar songs. We kept a familiar routine. And one of the biggest things that we did was provide a lot of visuals and materials to parents because I know for them, it was really, really challenging because their whole world had shifted. Their kids were now home all the time. They may or may not have been sure how to meet their needs. So we provided a lot of visuals for them. If you guys have attended anything with NIP in the past, one of the past sessions talked about lesson picks, which is really great. We used that to create a lot of visuals for our kiddos. And really what we focused on was less about academic things and more about feelings and how to stay calm and in control. So we would do things like yoga, we would do some fun breathing, and then we would also read a book. So what I found that worked really well is just this Zoom platform works really, really well to connect with kids, but also just focusing more on how they're doing and how they're feeling. Like I said, we did a lot of movement things. And then the biggest thing is just to be creative, because you have to be mindful that at home, they may not have everything that you have at your program, at your school. And so finding ways to do things that you would do in your setting at home for the family was really, really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Now, is your program operating in person as well as virtually, doing a hybrid?
Yeah, we are not operating in person right now. What we did do, though, we did do safe drive-bys to kind of give little goodie bags to our kiddos and to see their faces. It is up in the air what will happen with us in the fall. The rest of the school is virtual, but we, with students with disabilities, may get some in-person interaction, but we're not sure what that will look like. So what we are planning to do in the fall is create learning kits. Again, we're going to try to be as creative as we can and use as few special materials as we can, but we're going to be trying to provide a lot of visuals, a lot of communication boards in paper form to help those families, and things like that. So I'm not really sure what we're doing in the fall, but we will find out.
And it sounds like you have been able to keep up a great relationship, not only with the families that you serve, but the kiddos themselves. And given the wide range of disabilities and abilities that you have in your program, there are different ways that you can do that in person, virtually, you know, for them seeing you and talking to you. But like you said, home visits or making those community connections with them sounds like it's been really worthwhile as well.
Yeah, the community connection and just the connection to the parents has been really helpful, because you know, the kiddos themselves miss us and miss the structure, but also the family is who they spend the most time with. And the families are the ones that are also kind of struggling right now to know, you know, what to do with their kiddos and what activities can they do and what fun things. So having that connection with the family has been really helpful.
Awesome. And you had mentioned some of the resources for developing lesson scripts and visual stories and teaching stories, and we'll share those in our additional resources with folks as well as a reminder to everyone that we'll make sure that we share everyone's contact information, as well as ways to get in touch with them on and offline, so that you can be a resource and support to folks as well. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for starting us off. Sarah, we're going to jump over to you, if you wouldn't mind introducing you and your organization and the great work that you've been doing so far and some of what's been working really well.
Okay, hi, I'm Sarah Thorson. I'm with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. When everything hit, we closed everything down and then sort of started reopening slowly. So right now we have our golf running, we have a park ambassador program going, and then our childcare is going right now, and that's where I've been placed to work. We're in pods of 10 people total, so 9 kids and 1 staff, or if we have an inclusion facilitator, we'll have 8 children and 2 staff. And we've basically been doing our best keeping kids 6 feet apart. All staff are wearing masks. We're doing all our meals outside. Hand washing is constant. Cleaning is constant. We are rotating the supplies we use in and out in about a 48-hour period. So a lot of the things that we originally had been talking through sounded extremely difficult with children, and I've found it to be much more successful than I expected. So what we do is we have our groups. There's typically 4 groups at the site I'm at, and each group is in one room at a time. at the end of the hour or whatever time frame, you spray and clean everything. We have a spray that you can spray and leave for 10 minutes, and that sanitizes so that the next group can use it. Anytime we can be outside, we will, which isn't super different from Minnesota summers in general because we don't get a lot of warm weather. So being outside is a top priority, especially with the data that it's a lot more difficult to spread the virus when you're outside. As far as the social distancing or physical distancing, I've just gotten really used to saying 6 feet, spread out, 6 feet, spread out, over and over again. And one thing that we have put together at the site I'm at is a ruler that shows how far 6 feet is away, which is a lot longer than you actually think. So we pull that out every once in a while when we're having a lot of trouble with the kids staying apart. I'd say some stuff that we've had a little bit of trouble with is just for staff having to wear masks. That's taken a lot of getting used to. Again, that's why we do a lot of outside time, because the requirement is the masks indoors. You can take it off when you're outside. So we encourage a lot of outdoor time. And our program does look very, very different from regular summers. We don't have any field trips going on. They just recently reopened a few of our kiddie pools. So some sites are getting time in the pool, which I think has been very welcomed by the kids, just because the routine has, needs more variety than they're used to more variety than we're offering this summer. But reopening those pools, I think, has been really helpful for those sites. I'm not at a site that does that, but I am at a site that has 3 different playgrounds. So that's been, you give and you take what you can. And then we've been offering virtual field trips, which we find on YouTube or on Netflix. It's basically watching a video. Some of them are more geared toward learning. Others are more toward entertainment. And that's been helpful. And then for our kids with disabilities, we did have a lot of parents opt to keep their kids home. So the number of children we're serving right now is a lot lower than usual. But we are able, one thing that I've found really nice about staying on site is that calming space you can provide is consistently there. We know where we can go. We have the items in one place. We're not trekking it with us all over, or trying to get somewhere and choose a calm space to be for those moments when you need it, just that time. So with the kid I'm working with, he has a few different types of breaks. One are, when it's necessary and something has escalated. One is just when I'm seeing something start to escalate, we just take a little breather. And then one that he earns, which we've started calling Dino Time, which is his time to play with toys that only he touches. I still clean them all, but it just gives him some time and it gives him something to earn. And being on site has been really, really nice for that. And then we actually sent out a social story or a social narrative to all the families that talked through what our program was going to look like this summer, how different it was going to feel, what to expect, and things like that. And I think it's been pretty helpful. We have it up posted at my site, and the kids refer to it actually quite often. So that's been really cool, because I never totally know how often those things get used, because I'm typically a little bit more behind the scenes. So being in the front lines has been a fun experience. And then, yeah, I guess just as far as drop off and pick up, the parents stay outside. We gave them a number they can text for when they arrive. And so we go out to them and we bring their kid out to them. Can't get enough hand sanitizer and hand soap. I think the 20 seconds of hand washing isn't going quite as long as we'd hoped. So hand sanitizer has been quite a must before and after everything. And cleaning all the time.
Sarah, you had mentioned the teaching story that you shared for all of your participants, not just your children who have disabilities or unique learning needs. And that's something that we're going to share with the participants here so that they have that as a model, as well as other visual teaching tools that we know are good inclusionary practices, even sort of pre, during, and post-pandemic for folks. So thank you for highlighting that. Now, Renee, if we could come back to you for a minute.
Okay.
All right, let me make sure that our video switches back to you. One of the things that I'd love for you to share is that as a teacher, you've been talking about what strategies you've been implementing that have been going well for your kids and families. What about strategies that you've been implementing that have been going well for you as an educator and your colleagues? I'm sure there's been an identity shift in how it is that you view your work and how it is that you are teaching preschool to your kids as an early childhood educator right now. So would you mind addressing that? Some things that you've noticed that are going well for you, or things that you've had to adjust?
Yeah, so of course, going virtually was a big challenge because preschool is a very hands-on thing. Young kids are very hands-on, and so having to switch to a virtual model was very daunting and very scary. And my co-teacher is actually in this session. And I remember we talked a lot about, okay, what are we going to do? I don't think this will work. But I will say that the Zoom platform in general has been really, really beneficial. The mute button, as silly as that sounds, is really huge when it comes to things like stories or instruction. But also just getting to see all the little boxes, because one of the biggest challenges that we thought we'd face was that socialization piece. And we did have a couple typical peers in our class. So they were great, conversation wise, and they were so excited to see all their friends. And you could see something that I thought went extremely well was just seeing all of their little faces light up when they saw one another, because, we're not in front of them, we're not physically present with them. And yet, they saw our faces and they lit up. And so that has gone really well for us. I think also just kind of not tapering your expectations, but just knowing that it will look different and knowing that that's okay. So, I think being in the comfort of everyone's home has also helped too, because kiddos are much more comfortable in their own homes. We could see what they were doing. We could see, I had one student that would play with Lincoln Logs the whole time we had our circle, but that was great because I could comment on his building and he could show me what he was doing. And so I think just that mind shift of, it will look different, but it is doable. And then I know for us, collaboration was the biggest piece that was helpful. So we have a lot of related service providers that work with some of our students. We have a speech therapist, an occupational therapist, and a physical therapist. And what was really great is we got to collaborate with them, and they would join us for our weekly Zoom circle times with our kiddos. So they could provide us good feedback, the PT, on, different ways to incorporate movement and different activities to kind of do songs with motions or standing up. The occupational therapist also helped us with that, or ways to kind of use our fine motor skills, different activities we could do. And then with the speech therapist, she was really good to kind of give suggestions or resources as to things that the parents could do at home. So I think for us, just knowing, we're not alone was really helpful for me, and getting to collaborate with other teachers and other specialists, because they always have different ideas. And the more ideas, the better, because someone will say something and it sparks something. So another thing that has gone really well for me, kind of like Sarah was talking about, is finding resources on YouTube. I'm currently working this summer with a student one-on-one and finding ways to tap into things like fine motor, like tracing or drawing, which is super, dull for this kiddo. He's not super into it. And to do it through a screen, right? Because I'm not there, we can't interact physically. But we thought, okay, we can use Play-Doh and we can use shaving cream. And there are such great songs on YouTube about squeezing and playing with the Play-Doh and pulling it and using your fingers and just things that kind of make that more fun. So there's a visual, there's an auditory, and then we can be doing it side by side. So technology has been a huge blessing for us and a really good resource as well.
I love it. And some of the things that you hit on there was what it is that we love so much as the core of inclusion. It may look different, but it's more than doable, right? That the benefit of collaboration and having to be forced almost to garner as much innovation and creativity and collaboration as possible among professionals to do what you do best, and to give you that support as a teacher yourself, but to make sure that now more than ever, we have to recognize the fact that we're not in this alone, and that because the needs of our kids with disabilities are unique in general and may be even more unique now, let's rely on that shared dialogue. Let's rely on those shared expertise. And what an exciting time to innovate. If anybody's good at innovating, it's inclusion specialists and folks that work with kids with diverse needs, right? Awesome, love it. Now, Sarah, I'm going to come back to you from the Parks and Rec world and your work as the inclusion specialist in recreation. You've said that you've made a switch to now being sort of on the ground in front of the screen with the kids and working with them. What are some things that you've seen change in your professional identity to see in a successful change or a successful life?
So it's been really nice being able to spend more time with a specific child. Now I'm usually running around to all our rec centers with all the kids and getting a little bit of time here and there, which I really, really miss. But getting to be a little more in depth with the child at the site I'm at has really been nice. I got really lucky that I'm with staff who are really good with inclusion and just childcare in general. So it's been really fun. I think it's going to help me for the future to train my staff on what truly goes on, even though the program looks very different. There's a lot of fundamentals that I'll be able to train better on as we move forward and into, more of our usual, depending on what that eventually looks like. So that's been really nice. I will say I do feel a little disconnected from my staff. Luckily, I was able to bring back, we had to furlough my staff and then I could bring back a few of them. And I kind of had to just trust that they can handle it independently, and I know they can. But being able to come and help them through situations, which is typically what I do all summer long, has been a little tough not to be able to do, but I'm still available over the phone, and I can do site visits as long as we're outside. So I have been able to see the other kids and staff a little bit here and there this summer, so that's been nice. But I'm just excited for the day that more of our kids come back and we all feel a little bit more safe being in this environment. Though we're gonna head into cold season, so we'll see what happens because everything moves inside, and that's gonna look different too. So.
Well, on the great hand, some of the precautions and procedures that you're putting in place now will actually work to your advantage to promoting good health and healthy environments in the future. So that's awesome. And I love that you see the benefit in having the small groups right now to really get to build those close relationships and close interactions with kids that you may not have had an opportunity to build in the bigger groups where it is that you're pulled in lots of different directions. I also love that you're creating unique ways to try to stay connected with your colleagues and your staff, even though you may feel that disconnect with them, the ways that you can carve out those opportunities to be able to continue to build those relationships as well as those connections, because I think we're all really just hungry for connection right now, whether we're 3 years old or 53 years old. I think that's at the very center of what it is that we do as educators, right? Awesome. Now we're going to talk about the hurdles question. You had mentioned before some of the problems that have arisen and how it is that you've dealt with them and what you've learned from them. Are there other things other than trying to continue to promote the social distancing and using the visuals to do that? Other things that have popped up that you hadn't anticipated would be a problem, and how is it that you've solved that? We'll stay on you, Sarah, and then we'll go back to Renee to switch screens.
So I think maybe if we get in touch next week, because we just got an executive order that all people over the age of 5 will now have to wear masks, which I didn't think about as I was explaining this. So as of Monday, our kids are now going to have to be wearing masks when they're indoors. So that's going to be a new hurdle. We'll see how it goes. Several of our kids already do come wearing masks for indoors, but I'm guessing you're going to see a lot more outdoor time. It's going to get interesting. So that's a new hurdle that I'm just thinking of right now on the spot. And we shall see how that goes. One thing I did want to mention, I thought about as you were talking, is for inclusion, this now inherent lowered ratio has actually been wonderful. And another part of the reason that we haven't needed as many inclusion staff is because we are now at a ratio that is more inclusive for some of our kids. So that's been actually quite a nice little perk of this kind of forced lowered ratio. I don't know about the rest of you, but I love a low ratio. I think it's great. So, you know, as another side of that is that because I can't come jump in everywhere and I can't send subs anywhere because we can't go from building to building, the general staff really have had to step up in the inclusion portion of things, which I usually get a lot of pushback depending on where it is. And I think people are recognizing that it's really not that hard. It's not a whole lot different. It's about allowing space and time for a kid to be a kid when they need to. I've had multiple general staff say to me, you know, they just need like 3 minutes to have this moment, and then they self-regulate and they're able to come right back. And I'm like, yeah, and we just have to let it ride and accept that as them being them. And it's been really nice that they're having this eye-opening experience of, so they have these moments, they might be a little scary in these moments, but it all comes back and everything ends up being okay. And once they're regulated, then you can talk it through. So that's sort of a hurdle that we have faced, is people pushing back and be like, I don't know what to do if someone with a disability comes. And, you know, historically, I'm just right there holding their hand and helping them through it. And now that I can't do that, they're figuring it out and recognizing that it's not quite as tough as they might have thought it would be.
Yeah, I know Erin and I are like having goosebump moments right now, because that's really at the core of what it is that we do, that I think has been such a powerful learning experience throughout this this chaotic situation in the pandemic, is that all educators have really had to step up and become more universal in their practice and become more inclusive in their practice, because all of this is new to all kids. All of this is scary to all kids. All kids are dealing with new learning and different relationships and different behaviors. And so everyone's having that deep breath, aha moment to say, wow, what can we do to support everyone right now? And realizing that that's part of each of our own jobs and each of our own roles. And it's not extraordinary. It's what becomes the ordinary, what becomes the normal, and how it is that we all support all kids. So that's super, super exciting. I love that. And for that to be in the moment, on the ground learning experience for you and your staff professionally is just so, so cool. Awesome. Erin, just a reminder to folks that if you have questions for our participants, go ahead and add them into that chat function. Erin will read through those as we go toward our Q&A over the next few minutes here, so that we can present them to our panelists toward the end of our session. Sarah, thank you so much. Rene, we're going to jump back to you. What are some hurdles that you've encountered, and how have you solved those problems?
So for us, the biggest hurdle was just getting our families connected when we were fully virtual. So I think having a platform and having a particular schedule was really helpful. So we could tell them, you know, we're going to meet and have a virtual circle time at 12 o'clock every Monday and Wednesday. You know, we're here for you. And that was really helpful to establish that schedule. But I think the biggest hurdle for us right now is just the uncertainty and the unknown, and just being able to provide resources to our students and our families. So I know we have a lot of families that are worried about what their school year will look like, where their children will be, what they will be experiencing, and if they will be with other kids. And so right now we're trying to brainstorm different things that we can do. Like I had mentioned earlier, we are talking to our administrators and other people we know about possible learning kits. Because another hurdle are things. It's really encouraging to hear what Sarah's program is doing, because as we think about having to go back to school, you know, we're worried about a lot of these things. You know, they're talking about not using the same materials, and preschool is all about sharing. They're talking about keeping kiddos 6 feet apart, and little kids love hugs, and they love to be close to other little kids. So it is encouraging to me even to hear that things like that are working. But we, one of the biggest things that I'm thinking of coming up are the masks for our little kids, and then more importantly for the staff wearing them, because you know, a lot of our students with diverse needs, they rely on looking at the speaker and watching their mouth move to kind of see what they're saying. And so they actually do sell masks that have like clear around the mouth so that you can see through them, which is something we're looking into. And then I know they have face shields as well, which is something we're looking into, just something to keep us safe, but also, you know, let us be seen so that we're, you know, less scary, we're more approachable. And then I've also heard of people, this is something I would love to do once we get to go back, decorate your own masks, like put stickers on them, or, you know, whatever, make them fun, make it an art project that you can wear the next day. And then having all the stuffed animals and the dolls in our room have masks, make it really normal for kids. So, you know, things that they see get to have masks. They're stuffed animals, they're dolls, they're, you know, whatever's around them. So that's something that I would like to do in the classroom too. That's something that I anticipate, because masks are scary. People have brought up that sometimes, you know, it can make them think of the doctor or something. So we're just looking for fun ways to work on that. And then with the distance. But I think for right now, as far as virtual goes, our biggest hurdle is just the materials. But what I've learned is that you can do a lot more with a lot less than you think you can. So you can get really creative with anything you have, you know, and use things from around the house. So that's what I've been doing, because all of my stuff too is, you know, locked away in the school. So we've been using cookie sheets and shaving cream, you know, to work on fine motor and draw and use sensory. We've been, you know, using water and Play-Doh, making our own Play-Doh, whatever you need to do. So I think for us, it's just been materials being a hurdle, and just that connection through the virtual platform, which we've actually been surprised about. So.
I love hearing all of these pleasant surprises that folks have been experiencing. You know, all of the things that y'all have touched on that you said we anticipated the virtual technology aspect to be a big hurdle, and it's been clunky, but we figured it out, and it's actually been a great resource. Or we've been anticipating the social distancing to be a hurdle, but it's been okay, and we've been surprised, and we figured out ways around it. Or we've anticipated the mask wearing to inhibit communication, but we've been able to really be creative about how it is that we promote that. So again, all important, you know, foundational core beliefs of what makes inclusion such an important universal practice for teaching. So excited. Real quick, Rene, before we move over to our next discussion point, you had mentioned that your kiddos love interacting with each other via Zoom, even just to see each other's faces. How confident are your little ones in using the technology, and how much parental support have you found that they need to have?
Yeah, so we rely very heavily on our parents to help us out. We, you know, ask the parents to kind of get them set up. But the kids actually are very proficient with Zoom, much more so than I thought. I remember we had one little kiddo that if I didn't turn off annotate, he would draw all over our screen. And so we'd be watching a video and he would draw like stick people, and it was quite something. So they're pretty proficient. They can, you know, they can hit the red X when we're all done. But we do ask that the parents can log them in and can kind of sit with them at least initially. And so that's why we found that for us, the parent piece is so important too, because we're not just working with the child, we're really working with the whole family, and we're really trying to get to know the whole family. So, but we've actually gotten really good parent support and feedback. They, you know, they're super thankful and super excited to see us too, because it's a chance for them to kind of connect with other people as well. So that they feel less alone too, and they can see other families with young kids, and you know, I feel like it's nice for them too. So
in a way that they don't necessarily see each other and pick up and drop off and during the actual school day, right?
Yeah, I think that's really been a really pleasant surprise. They've gotten to connect in a new way, which you're right, they wouldn't get to because they're with us in a building, you know, away from their family. So that's been a pleasant, positive outcome.
Awesome points. And I also love your point that the children really are more advanced than we give them credit for in using the technology tools and the interaction tools. I know that I've learned a lot more from my own kids and the children that I work with than I had as my own independent competency before all of this. So that's really exciting to see as well. And we're going to close up the structured part of our discussion today just by highlighting some recommendations of, if you were to pick a handful of things that folks need to have on hand or access as resources that have just been a go-to for you, what are some that you would say, oh, this has been really important or useful to us?
So I mentioned it earlier, but Lesson Picks is literally the go-to resource that I make everything with. So it is $36 for the year, but once you have a subscription, you can make anything. You can make communication layouts for a bunch of different devices. You can make picture cards. You can make schedules. You can make you know, different fine motor activities like mazes or jot to dot or tracing sheets. Anything you could ever need. You can make social stories through that as well. So you can also, my favorite feature about it is you can upload your own photos. So you can upload photos of the children in your program or setting doing the things that you want them to do. So like I said, that's been really good. You can easily download it and share it. I also know that on the Conscious Discipline website, they have a social story for coronavirus. Someone shared that with me, and that was really cute. They have it in a couple different languages. But yeah, I would really, as far as the visuals go, I would highly, highly recommend Lesson Picks.
Awesome. Once we switch over to Sarah, if you have that website handy, which I do too, but if you wouldn't mind adding it into the chat or the other website that you had mentioned as well, and we'll make sure that we add those into our supplementary materials for folks also. Perfect. Sarah, how about you? You mentioned a really cool cleaning product. Is that something that you would say would be an essential for you, or are there other resources that have made your days go more smoothly than others?
Yes, definitely essential. Hand sanitizer. There's actually a local distillery that started making hand sanitizer out of whiskey, which doesn't smell good, but it does the job. So that's been nice, both supporting local and getting the materials we need. The spray we use is called HALT. I don't know if that stands for anything, but it definitely works. Checking your cleaning supplies for a dry time. So like Lysol spray, it doesn't get fully sanitized until you've left it for 10 minutes, and you got to make sure you have the right one and stuff. So being really, you know, careful with what you're choosing for your cleaning supplies, definitely. We have found keeping an eye on the Minnesota Department of Health website to be very helpful, as well as the CDC. And then YouTube for our virtual field trips seems really obvious, but it's been great, and Netflix as well. And then I also have a link I'll share in the chat of games that are redesigned for social distancing, that one of my colleagues found, that we've been using for our games. And that's another resource, really, is just the people you work with. That's been another thing with all the uproar, is getting to talk to people I don't usually talk to and hearing ideas from other staff. And when you really brainstorm together, you can come up with creative ideas of getting the programming in while maintaining the social distancing and offering these kids as much stimulation and socialization as possible while maintaining that distance, which again, I said, is, it can be pretty tough to do, but I think we are doing our best there. So I'll share that website in the chat about the social distance games.
That's fantastic, and again, the point that you made of how refreshing the opportunity to collaborate and innovate with peers and colleagues and folks across different disciplines and or in your local area have been so important. I think if anything, this has revealed to us how much we actually are all connected and overlap, and how beneficial it can be to take advantage of those connections and those relationships to do what we do best. That's fantastic. Erin, I'm going to ask you to jump in to pose any questions that we might have from the group that we can address, or anything that you've noticed come through on those chats. So
we've mainly been just getting some suggestions and agreement from everybody. So apparently Sarah and Renee are covering everything very thoroughly. And we have no real questions, talking about, Rose shared that they've been finding that masks have not been as much of a limiter as they feared, that they're getting used to it, that people understand, that that's part of things. Laura mentioned about the small numbers for natural support, and this is what we've all wanted for a long time anyway, which is kind of nice. And then Casey was talking about the fact that, once people get in, once the kiddos get logged into sessions online, that they're pretty independent. So pretty much just an agreement and some encouragement. No questions to ask at this point.
That's great to hear. I also love that folks are having these, eye-opening aha moments across the field as well. I think that's very affirming to all of us. So that said, if you have great resources or have been implementing certain strategies that have been really successful, share them with us and the group, either with us here in the chat, and we will make sure we put those into our documents for this coffee talk, or share them with us at the the National Inclusion Project so that we can share them broadly with folks and get those resources out there. We have a variety of supports available to the field on our COVID-19 website in terms of tips and tools and strategies that you can use to really design activities with an eye and a heart toward inclusion this summer, whether those activities have to be socially distanced or physically distanced, or whether or not they're virtual learning activities and opportunities. So take advantage of those, take advantage of our other coffee talks and supports, but most importantly, tell us what you're doing and what's working. Pose questions so that we can come together as a community to figure out next steps, because that's where the magic happens, right? To our panelists, anything that you want to ask our participants, or any final thoughts or comments that you have?
No, I really love that you guys do this. I think it's such a cool forum. I love the chat feature because I'm seeing really cool things. And it was really, like I said before, it was really encouraging to hear Sarah talk about being back in person, because that's something that personally I have not done yet, but had a lot of, okay, I don't know how it will go. So it's encouraging to know that a lot of recreation programs are doing it with success. So that gives me hope for our schools that we can do it too. So I really loved it.
Yeah, awesome. And again, it's that ray of sunshine amid the storm of all of this, right? And that's what we thrive on as educators, those smiles and those thumbs ups and those high five moments. Sarah, anything else that you want to add or ask as we close things out?
I do see that someone did ask, do I always provide one-on-one care, and are there any that cannot be served, and what about medically sensitive? So we provide one-on-one care when we can. As for right now, I think those who are medically sensitive maybe are choosing a different method of childcare just because of the risks currently. So I can't really speak to that. And then as far as folks who can't be served, I mean, here and there we'll have a situation where our program isn't the right fit for someone. But again, right now I think a lot of people are being really extra careful, so I have not run into that this summer. But what I do want to say to those of you who haven't done in person yet and are kind of working your way, there's tons and tons of questions. Please feel free to reach out to me, because I had a billion questions. I didn't think this was going to work. I was convinced we were going to shut down after a week. We had a lot of, and we still do have a lot of unrest in Minneapolis right now going on, and that I thought was a new challenge, but it's really another thing that's just shown how great this community can come together while being 6 feet apart and wearing your mask. But it really is doable, and it's about just doing it, as intimidating as it feels with all the stuff out there, and this is scary and whatnot. Kids really, they're challenging you, but they always do that. When you get really serious about the safety of it, I feel like most of the kids really respond to that. If they don't, it's really, really important that they do. So it has provided a lot of heart-to-hearts with kids about the importance of them, and the importance of me, and the importance of health, and the importance of our grandparents. So it is doable if you have the right safety precautions in place. Really, really feel free to reach out to me, because I think one thing that helped me get there was talking to people who had been doing this throughout, because we did have childcare that was open for essential workers, and just hearing, it sounds like it's going to be really, really tough, and it might be a little bit, but you can do it, and you do just start to get into the routine. And I'm just going to start holding up a sign that says 6 feet, because that's what I say all day. Have tons of gloves and lots of spray, and if people are uncomfortable, they're not going to come right now. And I think it's important that people have that choice. So just know that we can do it.
Yeah. And I think that that's an extraordinary thought for us to end on, is that remember that kids are miraculous, amazing, innovative, inquisitive, curious, learning, thinking, feeling little beings. And so all of the discussions that we've been hearing of kids can't learn this way, or kids won't stay far apart, or kids don't follow guidelines, we're finding that they do all of these things, and that they can. And I think that that is the very core, again, of what it is that we believe in inclusion, is that if we change the dialogue into thinking about what is possible, it takes that impossible out of the equation. And when we focus in on what it is that kids can do, and what we can do as educators, it takes that can't out of the dialogue, which is really powerful. So I love it. We may just have to figure out a way that we can peek in or zoom in, or take a look at the kinds of things that you and Rene are doing in your classrooms and doing in your programs to see it. So if you have videos or pictures or anything that you can share with us, that we could share out there to the community as well, of some learning activities or interactions that are going really well, or even maybe those that are clunky, that you show us how it is that you problem solve and you address them, that would be awesome. It'd be such a great learning experience for us. I'm going to end by bringing everybody back to our contact information, so that everyone can see how it is that they can get in touch with us at the National Inclusion Project. Visit our website at www.inclusionproject.org. We do have a COVID-19 resource page up there for inclusion supports and educational resources. And we'll also be posting a copy of this coffee talk that will be captioned for download, as well as supplementary materials. But if you would like to get in touch with either Rene or Sarah, please reach out, and let's keep this great community connection of learning going. Erin, do you have anything that you want to share before we close out?
Nope, just thank everybody for plugging in, and Sarah and Rene, I echo the thanks for your willingness to share today.
Awesome. Thank you, Rene. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, everyone. We will be in touch, and we look forward to seeing everyone and hearing everyone next time. Thanks, everybody.